Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning into the Sedelia and Jai Show. I am your host, Sedelia and Jai, and this episode of the Sedelia and Jai Show is sponsored by Tandem Media. Tandem Media, honey, you guys already know the drill. All of your studio space needs, marketing needs, public relations needs, okay, then you need to hit them up. You have the website here. You guys have their handle. Check them out. I will also be... are you guys ready for the good news? I need some drum rolls. I will be hosting a writing workshop in partnership with Tandem Media, guys. Everyone's always asking me, like, how do you do what you do? You know, how are you such a beautiful writer? How are you such a powerful performer? You know, how do we get there? So I decided to create this workshop for you guys. It's a 4-week intensive program where I will be able to, through Tandem Media, it'll be at their space. This is only available to my people in Toronto, because we're actually going to be physically meeting. Crazy, right? We're going to be physically meeting, but it's safe, social distancing. The space has already been steamed and cleaned and sanitized. You know, we'll be only accepting X amount of registration from people, so that we make sure that we have social distancing. Masks will be required, so you might as well get your comfortable one. Not the one that's like hospital standard with the whole blue thing. That one's not comfortable. Okay, let me tell you right now. That one, I be like, I can't breathe. So I really hope that you guys tune in. Be on the lookout on my page and on Tandem Media's page. I will be talking a lot about it in the weeks to come, so that you guys can register, because spots are limited. People have already registered, honey, okay? And we're going to start this, we're going to kick the month of August off with this workshop. So either way, thank you so much for tuning in again to the Sedelia and Jai Show. Our special guest for this evening is... oh, I'm so excited. You know why? Let me tell you guys. Can I be honest? Can I be honest with you? So the thing for me is that I've been looking for like a black therapist for a long time, or just a psychologist or a mental health specialist, but that was black. You know, I was seeing a lot. I was meeting a lot, but they weren't black. So that was important to me, because that made me feel a little bit safer in talking about how I feel or what I'm going through, and I can actually see someone who I can physically or tangibly see relates to me or understands me, right? So I got really lucky, guys. I was doing a lot of searching, and then ran across Dr. Jamaal Fortner's YouTube channel, which I was like, whoa. He was saying, I was like, okay, all this stuff you're saying, I feel you, King. I see this. You're absolutely right. And it was very enlightening. And then again, I be trying to tell y'all, but y'all don't believe me. Y'all don't want to believe me, right? Because I'm just me. I'm not a doctor. So y'all don't believe me. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to be too salty about it. I'm not going to be too upset. But I said, well, let me bring you a whole doctor so you can trust what I say, okay? No. But he's going to be, he's here. He's in the house. Hey, thank you for joining us, Dr. Jamaal Fortner. And he's going to come on here, honey, and he's going to spit his tea. He's going to give everything from a psychological standpoint, from a racial trauma standpoint, from a COVID standpoint, from a mental health standpoint. What else do you guys want? No, I'm asking. You don't want nothing else. I'm asking you to tell me here. Okay? What do you want? Nothing else. So, again, before we bring him in, he's in the house. Hey, he's in the building. Hey, he's in the building. I want to thank all my guests for tuning in and joining us tonight. I see you guys. I just want to say ahead of time that this is a talk show standard platform. So that means that all of you tuning in, once the show gets started, I will not be acknowledging you because we'll be focused on the interview with Dr. Jamaal Fortner, as we do with all of our other guests. But I do see you. I do read the comments. I will respond. I do love you. But this is a non-traditional IG Live. This is a professional IG Live. Y'all better get up on it. Y'all better know what's up. And you guys kind of have the habit now and the feel for it now. So let's get into it. So grateful again. Okay, all right, let's bring our building, darling.
Hello, hello.
Hello, good evening.
Hi.
Okay, first of all, would you mind like put your camera like this a little just so we can see like center, like bring it down.
Sure. Let's work on it. Give me a sec.
There we go. Secondly, you won't come on my show with all your accolades in the back. Okay, excuse out of us.
Sorry. I do what I can. I needed something to go on the walls.
He said, sorry, sorry I'm accomplished. Sorry that I've done everything. I love it. I'm here for it. How are you, King? How you doing this evening?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm just, excited, verklempt to be here talking to you.
Yeah, no, the pleasure is all mine, Like you heard me mention that I've been dying. I've been looking for a Black psychologist and or clinician or mental health therapist, anything, just for people, because we want to feel safe, right? Like I was thinking about how I'm sure it's prevalent in our Black culture, but as a bicultural woman, as like even an African, like Africans, like we're like mental health, psychology, what? No, you better go pray that shit off. We don't know about, we're not about that life.
I agree. We are kind of hard to come by. To find a clinician of color is really difficult. But also, especially if you're looking for a male clinician of color, it makes it that much more difficult. With everything being taught from a European perspective, it is better to have a clinician who does have some understanding of where you're coming from.
Yeah, because I've been trying to spit knowledge to these people, and they're like, "You're not qualified." No, they didn't say that. I'm brilliant. No, but it's nice to have someone of you backing me up, right?
Got you.
You are the proof. You are the proof. They don't believe me, they'll believe you. You have studied it, you've learned it, you have trained in it. Congratulations on your doctorate. Again, I'm so grateful to have you here. When I saw you, I instantly fell in love with the work that you're doing. Absolutely. And with the message, and it really touched me, and I'm just so grateful that you responded. Hello, I know you're a busy man out here. Like, okay, all right, we're gonna get him on the Sedelia and Jai show. So we're gonna jump right into it. Just tell me a little bit, love. Doctor, forgive me.
All right.
Tell me a little bit about how COVID has been going in your state, because you're not in Toronto.
No, I really wish I was though.
Honey, we got it. We're chilling here.
We've had a lot going on with COVID, and I think it's coming, in the whole wave cycles and all that good stuff. But one thing we are seeing a lot of is, people just saying, hey, I'm not going to wear a mask and I'm not going to take these precautions. And I think that's awful, because it's like, it's not about you. Even if you don't want to protect yourself, at least protect the others. And I think because, you're seeing that really lax stance from so many people, we're getting like another spike, and it seems to get worse and not better.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And please reiterate for our guests, because they don't want to believe me. I tell them where you're from, they be like, nah. I tell them about imposter syndrome, they're like, no. So you need to tell them where you're from, what you're doing, so they hear from the horse's mouth.
Sure. I'm representing Houston, Texas. 7-1.
Hey, all right, guys, everybody calm down. America's not doing so well right now. Are we in agreement?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot happening. God bless us all. We're working on it, though. We're hoping.
Yeah. But have they opened up the city in Texas? Have they opened up things? What's going on in terms of the phases of this pandemic?
So here in Texas, our governor is Republican, Greg Abbott. And so he was with the crew that said, hey, no matter what, let's start reopening because we want to protect our economy.
Right, like most governments.
But the only problem is it's been really, really problematic when you look at how we opened up around Memorial Day, and then there's this huge spike in COVID cases, and they try and kind of shirk the blame onto other things. So it's not the fact that we open up the government; it's those darn Black Lives Matter protests, and it's all those things. But it's like, no, it's the fact that everyone's out in the store. I'm a germaphobe as it is. So, you know, for me to go to Home Depot and see a whole bunch of folks without masks on, it's like a horror movie. I'm running out.
You're like, what? Do you feel like that too, doctor? Do you feel like when you're out and like people like get close to you, you're like looking at them with a side eye, like, don't be rolling up on me. Don't social distancing.
I was social distancing before it had a name. So I don't want people in my bubble. So don't come breathing on me, down my back and up my neck. I'm really good on that. Like 3 steps back, give me my bubble.
He's like, you're in my bubble. 3 steps back.
Really.
I love it. That's really incredible to hear that. But yeah, people are kind of just tired of COVID. You know, I had a question that I didn't even really talk to you about, but I was thinking about it because like I'm just observing, like even here in Canada, I think people are pretty restrained, considering other parts of the world here in Canada. But there's still this. I still personally feel a concern that like people are just kind of like so tired of being cooped up, and they're like, it's summer, and then people lose their minds. They don't know how to act. And I'm like, first of all, staying at home was not a provision made by the government. Well, at least if you don't believe in conspiracies. Okay? we're not gonna get into that. But factually, the government didn't tell us to stay at home for their fun.
Yeah.
They didn't. You're not in prison. Like people are like, I'm locked up. I can't breathe. I can't see. You ungrateful ass mother. This is for your safety. Forgive me, doctor. This is for your safety. These aren't laws put in place for your demise or to make you feel some type of way. You're complaining like someone's doing it to you. No one's doing it to you. It is for your safety.
But, you know, you always are going to have those people who are going to say, hey, it's my right to be out. It's my right to go to work.
It's your right. You better go out. That's your right to go out and die. Yeah, you got to go out. Do your thing.
You took the words right out of my mouth. And that is going to be the one thing that I'll say. That is also your right. It is also your right to go out there and die if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But I think it's a little bit more prudent for you to stay at home and stay safe.
Better safe than sorry. I might not even believe in COVID or believe in all that's going on, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying even if that was someone's mindset, better safe than sorry. How can you be sure? You can't be sure. You better stay your at home. Bleep. Where are my bleep? I need my bleeps.
You need a little expletive bar to pop up.
I need my bleeps because I don't swear on the air. But that's really incredible. So thank you for sharing with us what the situation is in Texas. I'm so happy you're here. Oh, I tried to tell y'all wasn't ready. Y'all about to be ready. So you know, because everyone wants to know. Everyone always asks the doctor. For us, you know everything. You're in life. You know everything. You need to tell me everything I need to know about life. Okay?
Try. If not, I don't know. We'll find out together.
Yeah. Hello. I love that. What humility. I love that journey. So I want to talk a little bit about self-care. How do you feel about self-care? What is your tip for self-care, especially during these times?
Okay. So one of the big things about self-care is I think, you know, when everything is open and we can run around and we can be here, there, everywhere, we don't really engage in a lot of self-care because in our minds, our self-care is probably the fact that we're always doing something. So we won't be focused on our issues. We won't be focused on our problems. You know, I used to jokingly say that things like depression or anxiety, that's a luxury for some people. If you work in 2 and 3 jobs, you don't have time to be depressed or anxious. You got to get to work. When you're not at work, you're asleep. So now with COVID happening, everyone's inside, everyone's at home all the time. So you're getting all of those things. I have all this time with my thoughts. So now they're replaying on me. Everything is just kind of weighing me down. So it's important to find those things that you can do to keep yourself regulated. For a lot of people, that breaks down to stuff as simple as I'm just going to watch TV. For some people, it's cleaning. For some people, it's, you know, I go out in the yard and just sit there for a little bit and get some sunlight. Whatever that is, I think it's important that you find what works for you. I wish there were just one thing where I could say, hey, do this one thing and you'll be great. But that's right. Difficult. For me, I love aromatherapy. So you walk into my house at any given time, it can smell like any part of the world at any given time. But that's what works for me. But for somebody else, they might be like, I can't stand for it to smell like this. Also, my thing is cleaning. I love to have a clean home. So I have cleaned and sterilized this house so many times. It is bananas.
But like you said, Dr. Fortner, you know, like, people might not be able, it's variant. It varies from person to person. So is there, I know we can't give like a general explanation, but is there any point of origin for someone to even be able to identify what works for them and what doesn't? Do you have any recommendations on what someone could do to even try and decipher what works for you, what doesn't? Because you still got to figure it out, guys, for yourself. But maybe there's a starting point where you could ask yourself questions, or I don't know.
Of course, I think the first place to start is, at what point do you feel the most comfortable? When in your life do you feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable maybe with friends? Do you feel comfortable talking to relatives? Where in your life do you feel the most comfortable? And when you get into those spaces, ask yourself, like, what am I doing that makes me feel so at ease? You know, for a lot of people, I realize that's their house of worship. So now that we're inside worshiping, you might want to get on YouTube and find a pastor that you like and, and listen, you know, turn your home into your house of worship if that's what you need to do. But it's going to be a lot of adjustment and adapting. But the first thing is just, where do you feel comfortable?
That's a really great starting point, I think, because I think that was that was one of the greatest lessons I tried to learn. I didn't know how to say it or identify it like you've just said, but I was just like feeling weird. I was like, oh no, I don't like it. This doesn't feel good. I don't like it. Okay, well, when something feels right, I'm like, yes. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. And we've talked a lot about unplugging also. Unplugging, what? Not a a cord from a plug standard. What does unplugging mean?
For me, unplugging is, literally shutting yourself down, giving yourself a minute to get away from all of the social media, all of the news. I mean, you can be easily inundated by news, watching the actual news itself, catching the crawls across the bottom of the screen. Even when you're on IG, you can go from looking at a perfectly good video of a baby running with a dog to the next thing that pops up is, news flash, we're going to war. And it's like, are you serious?
And you're like, what happened? When did we...
So sometimes unplugging is literally what it sounds like. Like, let me get away from all these electronics. Maybe I need to pick up a book and go, old school. Let me read a book. Or, for those who aren't readers, let me play a video game or, pull out some board games, but do something that's not going to give you those surprise factors and the shock factor where you're inundated with new news.
Absolutely. That's really great advice. Thank you so much for that. I just wanted to touch a little bit, like I think most of us, like with this whole Black Lives Matters movement, as I'm sure everyone knows about, I'm sure you've gone through your whole, I don't want to get too personal, doctor, but if I may, before I even ask the question I wanted to ask, I want to know a little bit about like how you felt during this movement, given that you are a person that has the tools to cope. Did it still affect you in any way? What was that process like for you?
It's one of those things that I feel like everyone's affected in some way, shape, or form. If you're a person of color, I don't think there's a way to get around being affected. But one of the biggest things for me was, I think, watching the death of Elijah McClain. Seeing a young man who is essentially praising the police as they're handcuffing him and killing him. It's like, oh my God, what is this, where we are as a people? We think we've made so much progress, but look at how far we have yet to go. I think a large part of it is I identify with these victims. I can identify with being a larger African-American man like George Floyd, who may be really posing no threat, but someone sees you and decides, oh, well, he's a threat to me. Like, I have no intention to do you any ill will, but you've just decided that based on a look. And I can't change that. That's like the problem. It's like, I'm always going to be 6'3". I'm always going to be, 300 pounds. I'm always going to be a large black man. If I could turn into, a 5'5", 180-pound white man, I'd do that for you. But because that is not possible, it's like I can't change your point of view. And so I think for any person of color, that it can be very, it makes you feel subjugated, and it just makes you feel very pushed down. And then when you see people on the news who are in the majority say things like, "Oh, well, they've things have gotten better. This was an isolated incident." It's like, how do you get the right to denigrate or deride my experience as a black person? You've never lived my life. You've never understood the racial pressure that I deal with, the societal pressures that I deal with. So I think that takes us to that place of like anger, where it's like, how dare you tell me this? So I think for all of us, is especially people of color, one of the biggest things is acknowledging the situation, acknowledging the real feeling that we're feeling. Like, am I feeling sad? Am I feeling embarrassed? Am I feeling, powerless? Like, what is my real feeling? And when I deal with that feeling, I can better deal with the anger that oftentimes sits on top of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Speaking of anger, can you talk to us a little bit about the stages of grief? Because I know a lot of Black people are going through that right now, and they're experiencing grief and anger. I'm sorry, like even in the stages of grief, according to what I understand, we're stuck in this anger phase of
Yeah,
grief. I know there are levels, but I know a lot of Black people have kind of sauté, I'm sorry, francophone, like jumped into the anger phase. They've skipped like the sadness, the what is it, the disillusionment, like the non-believing, and then and now we're not even at acceptance yet. We're kind of stuck in anger.
I think, for most people start at denial and isolation. But I think this situation is so different because it's hard to deny what I'm seeing with my own eyes and what everyone else is seeing. It's easy to deny something that you haven't seen. If you haven't seen this happen, you could be like, well, that doesn't happen in my neighborhood. That doesn't happen to anybody that I know. But in this case of like George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and all of these killings that have happened, and I'm calling them a killing and a murder. I don't care if the police did it or if another person did it. Either way, it's a killing and it's a murder. At the end of the day, we're seeing it, so we can't deny it. So unfortunately, I think that knocks out our first stage altogether. Now,
Right.
now when we move into the anger phase, I think a lot of us are stuck in that anger phase because it's I need to do something. So many people feel energized and engaged and they want to do something, but they don't know what. And I think, for some of us, with this happening in COVID, it's kind of like, I don't really want to go out there, and be around all those people, but I really want to do something and I don't know what I want to do. So I think, for a lot of us who are stuck in anger, a way to get around that is to honestly engage yourself in a positive way. What organizations can I work with, donate to, write letters for, campaign with? Let's figure those things out and help ourselves out of that anger space into a space that's more productive.
Is that a part of the advice that you're giving to us for those who may feel overwhelmed? Because they seem pretty, kind of crossover. They could be easily applicable to those who are feeling overwhelmed.
Sure, and I think it's good to be able to step into that activist role in your neighborhood, in your community, but sometimes overwhelming requires a pause. So it's okay, and that's another thing, just to understand that it's okay to take a second and say, you know what, today I'm not going to listen to any of this stuff. I'm not going to engage in this right now because it's a lot. It's a lot
It's
to
too much. It's too much, Doc. It's too much.
it's a lot to process. It's a lot to deal with emotionally, physically, mentally. It's just all around overwhelming. So sometimes it's okay to just say, you know what, I'm gonna look at this stuff tomorrow. I want to take today and just do something that's completely selfish, something that makes me happy. I want people to understand that it's okay to be selfish when you're doing self-care. And honestly, it's not even considered selfish, it's self-preservation.
But outside of self-care, you can't continuously put off the powerful message or your destiny. So for those of us that want to tackle prominent issues, how then can we support ourselves mentally to be able to withstand, I don't know, this gift, the strength that's, thrust upon us, like God himself, maybe, how do we, for those of us who are exercising self-care, but we can't push things off too much, right?
No, and I don't think the thing is don't procrastinate about it, but give yourself that time. Sleep is a huge one.
Ooh, yes.
Are losing sleep because of what they're seeing. A lot of people just don't sleep naturally. They're like, I only need 3 hours and I'm good. If that's you, God bless you. Because I mean, I mean,
Honey, I need 8. I can't function 8 minimum. I'm saying minimum. Like sometimes that's not even enough. I sleep too much.
I'm like a little bit of time to sleep. The bless. It really is. I mean, it gives yourself time to think about it, and we don't realize it, but our brain needs to process things subconsciously as well.
Yes.
When you're asleep, and if I'm never sleeping and I'm just piling on and piling on and piling on, and then you're wondering why you're hearing things and seeing things, and you're extra sensitive to everything that's happening around you. Somebody says good morning, and you're like, "What's good about it?"
Right.
Like, all right, if you got it, just go on.
Don't be dramatic. You got it. That's hilarious. But yeah, again, just to kind of narrow into that more, those of us who are feeling overwhelmed by this process. So you're saying take it day by day.
Definitely.
Be patient with yourself. And then what is a healthy way to tackle situations like this? What's a healthy way to tackle, if I say me, I want to make a change. I want to impact the world. And I want to start to think about how I can do that in terms of this Black Lives Matters movement without being too much of a detriment to myself. Do you have advice or like a first step, or guiding points? Just, you can even say like see a psychologist or a therapist who will help you through that process. That I saw one a long time ago. She was a white woman. Wasn't good enough for me. I wish I had known you then. Where was you at? Where was you at, doctor?
Probably.
Where were you at?
I was probably in school.
All right. Well, I did see one because I thought it was healthy and it worked for a while, but it was still it wasn't enough for me. There was still something missing, and that's why I search high and low for you. So of course I'm gonna flood you with questions now.
Okay.
For those of us who are ready and strong enough to make a difference, what advice do you have for us to move forward while still staying mentally sane?
So one of the biggest things, and I learned this coming into social work and into counseling, you have to take it literally a step at a time. A lot of times the issue with us is we see 1,000-mile journey and we're trying to be at the end of that journey tomorrow. And in doing so, you become so overwhelmed that you end up doing nothing at all. So literally pick one thing. One thing. That might be, I'm going to write letters to my congressman. That might be, I want to donate to this one cause, or I want to solicit donations for this one cause. Pick one thing that you can do and do that one thing. And then let that one thing branch out. Don't expect the tree, get one twig in your hand and be able to hold on to it and then let that grow. Okay.
I love that. I'm going to do that, Doc. That's great advice. And again, before we move on, thank you so much to everyone joining us tonight on the Sedalia and Jai Show. We are here with our special guest, Dr. Jamaal Fortner, who is really, really going to help us kind of navigate a little more about how we're feeling during these times with COVID and with racial tension, and just kind of help us figure our thoughts out. This episode is sponsored by Tandem Media. If you guys have any questions or you're thinking of anything, let us know in the comments. Again, this is a standard platform, talk show platform, so I will not directly address you, but I will see your comments, and if they are relevant enough, then I may bring them into discussion. Amazing. So please feel free to do that. Moving on, Dr. Fortner. Everyone, religion and mental health are different. I mentioned briefly earlier that growing up with an African background, we didn't believe in therapists or mental health. per se, because that's just not what our culture allows. But it's not even just a culture, it's a religion. The religion shapes the culture, at least in Islam in Senegal. So a lot of people might think that like religion and mental health care are mutually exclusive, right? Like they cannot be put in one room. It's crazy. Do you have any thoughts on that? Can one be religious and still seek mental health care?
I believe that you should be religious and seek mental health care. No, I'm just kidding.
Ooh, okay.
Think here's the
You
thing.
need both. They're in tandem. They're not so different. You need one. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, you can do, I feel like you can do both and you should do both. And I think for so long, African American religion has almost preached like, hey, if you're having depression, if you're having anxiety, that's not a mental health issue. That's not a health issue. It's a spiritual issue. Your faith is not strong enough. You need more faith. Let's lay hands on you and let's heal you and let's do all these things. And at the end of the day, the devil is a lie, but that you got, that's the truth. And you need some
Yes.
medication for that. And I think it's amazing that even as far as we've come with African American religion, you will still have people who will say, oh, well, they're going to see a doctor and they got them on pills and that's awful. We could just pray that away. And it's like, no, you can't. You can't pray away a physical illness. If someone is diabetic, are you going to tell them that they're bad for taking insulin? If so, no, you're not. Because if they don't take that insulin, they're going to die. That's just it. So it's like nothing's wrong with, attending to your mental health, because that is going to be a huge issue. For a lot of people, I think you have pastors who are not college educated. God bless them, but they're not college educated. So for a parishioner to come to you with a depression issue or an anxiety issue, and you're trying to address that with a random Bible scripture and a prayer, that may not be enough. Why don't you feel free enough to direct them to someone who can help them? It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, you know what? I don't know what the biblical response for that is right now, but let me help you find some tangible help. Because sometimes we're in a faith realm, but we're forgetting that we're earthly beings. So we need some earthly help. We need Christ with some flesh on it to help us through this situation.
Amen. I really love that. That makes a lot of sense to me, because my mother's extremely spiritual and religious, if you will, Baptist Christian. Hallelujah. And she is like every day, constantly has for my entire life, given me advice about how to navigate religiously, how to navigate the world religiously. And I kept saying, Mom, but like I needed to practically apply. Mom, I know you're right. I love you, but how do I make it like true? How do I make it apply? This doesn't make sense to me. She's amazing enough that she's a teacher. So she then took teaching tools to help me understand. But what you're saying, a lot of people don't have that if they didn't grow up like I did specifically. We need that practical element is so important, how to bridge that gap.
Definitely. I think, finding, and for those who are seeking a therapist, find a therapist who will incorporate your religious beliefs into what the work that you're doing. Because religion is an excellent coping skill. Prayer, meditation, it's an excellent coping skill. And I know I use it quite, I think that's probably the first coping skill that most people of faith learn is pray. And that's great. And a lot of times that prayer and meditation can be very helpful, but you also have some people who become incredibly anxious when left alone with their thoughts, who become incredibly depressed when left alone with their thoughts. They need somebody to actually hear them and hear out what they're saying. So there's nothing wrong with going to a therapist, because maybe, like me, you grew up in a really small town where the pastor knows everybody. And I don't feel comfortable telling him my business, because tomorrow Deacon so-and-so is going to know all my business. And
Sure.
and Deacon this lowdown is going to be telling it all in the streets. So I don't want that.
That makes sense. You got to have your safe space. Safe space isn't what's readily available. It's what's safe, as it says, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. I know that you had like a turning point in your career with this whole religious and mental health, dynamic, where you decided to focus your work in on men and children with religious backgrounds. You specified with religious background. So tell us a little bit about what that turning point was. What made you shift into this direction?
So before I got into mental health, I was actually largely in hospitality. And what happened was a friend of mine from college, we all called him Chucky. I remember one night we were texting on Facebook, just, basic stuff. Man, how's it going? How's life? He had actually been working at a hotel as well. So he said, man, I lost my job. So in talking to him, it was just like, no big deal. Like, man, why don't you come stay with me? Like, you can come out here, see if you can find a job. It's not a big deal. And
Right.
he was his normal self, and he was like, no, man, I'm just going to kind of go on doing my own thing. I'm good. And a few days later, I got word that he killed himself. I had to go to his funeral and hear his grandmother bawl and weep and sob, yelling, Lord, why did you take my baby away? And in my mind, the only thing I thought of was, is there something that we could have done differently? Like, did we miss a sign? Did we ignore something? And I realized how often we, especially for men of color, the assumption is he'll be fine. If he drinks, he'll be fine. He's a functional alcoholic as long as he can make it to work. FYI, there is no such thing as a functional alcoholic. If
Mm.
put that off to the side for later. But one of the biggest things is we ignore those signs that a lot of Black men are giving off. Drinking yourself to death is not normal. Working yourself like a slave so that you don't have to deal with your problems is not normal. But
That's the bigger one I noticed in men, at least in my generation. Workaholics. I need to work to build a career, to be with you, to all this. Yeah, you're a damn lie. Your ass is running.
yeah, it's like, we're literally working to avoid ourselves. And the thing about it is, you can run and run and run, but no matter where you go, there you are. At the end of the day, you will be there and you are the problem until you deal with it. It's just gonna keep chasing you. If you want to keep that monkey on your back, you could dress it up and put a Crown Royal bag on its head if you want to, but it's still there and it's still a problem.
That makes a lot of sense. Wow. Yeah. I'm really sorry. My condolences to your friend that passed away. That was really traumatic and intense, but I'm sure that gave you it fueled you even more to take the path that you took. And we're reaping those benefits today. So I'm sure he's in heaven really happy about it and smiling, right?
That's
Um,
the hope.
that's at least how I like to think of it. Absolutely. You know, Black people, in term, even in your friend, with your friend, perhaps you guys have had this experience, but I think I've noticed that Black people are immediately criminalized, immediately, as opposed to there being an understanding that there's that what is maybe deemed or considered criminal behavior is in fact just not only from coming from a poor socioeconomic condition, but also mental health instability. And you're here to help us navigate this mental health instability portion. So how do you as a healthcare professional, like how do you help right this wrong of this like image of criminalization, but then there really being a deeper problem?
So I think for myself and clinicians like me, the goal is always going to be that we inform. Informing is the bigger thing. Are our people aware of how they're being targeted? Because quite often we may not call it this, but we're being targeted, especially Black men. We're being very much targeted by the police. And it starts all the way down in pre-K with our kids being kicked out of school at rates 3 to 4 times higher than any white child. So when we're looking at things like this, it's okay, what are the institutional things that are in place that are pushing us out? What are also the things that are pushing us to drugs and alcohol?